good evening, everybody. Here from Cologne. I'm really glad that you joined this meetup this evening, and I'm totally excited to meet you, to say hello to everyone here who joined the first, I think, FinTech Meetup Europe this year. And we thought that we kickstart this evening with short introduction talks from our speakers, Neha, Jens, Olga, and Peter. So thank you that you joined this meetup tonight and you will share your thoughts with us. And after that, Lena is taking over and will host a discussion round, and then we finish this meetup. But let's jump straight into the short talks, and I would kindly ask Neha to start. Neha is FinTech team lead at FCDO services, and she's also supported at FemTech and a regular speaker. And from the profession, she's a lawyer and FinTech professional specializing in digital and financial services, financial inclusion, payment services, and anti-money laundering and terrorist financing. So, hello, Neha, and welcome. And yeah.
Thank you, Jan. I'm very happy to be here at the FinTech Europe meetup. I like the name. I think as we go along, we should bring this to Asia as well. So you will have to think of a better name for the next time. And I'm quite sad that you don't have a meetup during the summer season. I was hoping to find myself in Germany. So it would be nice to see people in Rio and have this conversation. But hi, everyone. Happy New Year to you. I see there's a chat message saying Happy FinTech Year. So I think that's a great start. We are here, all FinTech buddies. So I'm a lawyer, as Jan said, and I've been working in the financial sector for about 15 years. And my latest portfolio is all about using tech as a force of good. So I aim to bring more women to work in FinTech. I think we'll be talking in detail about what are the big trends that we can look out for in 2022. But for me personally, it's going to be FinTech and sustainable development goals, and how green tech can also go hand in hand with FinTech. So very excited to be here today and also to learn from my fellow panelists. I think I'll take a pause there and pass it on to the next speaker then.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, okay, thanks for handing over to the next speaker. So our next speaker and is in my running order, Jens Kohnen. Paymenttools, a REWE Group corporate startup, which vision is to create a payment ecosystem by retailers. Jens for retailers, an experienced business builder, which payment guy and state-of-the-art payment and director solution across channels. Hello, Jens, and nice to have you here in this meetup tonight.
Yeah, many thanks for the intro, Jan. And now everything is said about me, so thanks for that. Nothing to add more. So thanks very much for the invite. It's great to be here. Starting as a Cologne-based startup, and I think the change of the name for this meetup pretty much also belongs to us, because we are starting from Cologne, but also tackling Europe. So I think it's the right environment for us. And yeah, great to see you all here. Yeah, my name is Jens. I'm in the banking, FinTech, and payment space for a couple of years in various roles. But now I'm heading an excellent group of people here in Cologne. But not only, we have various baselines. We have various organizations within Germany currently, but also facing into other areas, because we want to tackle payment new as a new player in the payment service provider market. We're coming from the REWE Group, so with a huge ecosystem of merchants, of daily customers coming to us. We're starting with 1 billion transactions we're doing currently for the REWE ecosystem already. But our ambition is to grow also externally and grow into other merchants, into other services beyond the classical payment space as well. And yeah, we now open also for other merchants, not only within REWE Group.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. I'm looking forward to the discussion with Lena. I have a crazy idea. Maybe you can name your city and your country of where you're from in the chat. It would be cool to have a nice overview where you all come from. So if you can drop a line, it would be very, very nice. Maybe we make something interesting out of the data then later on. And yeah, our third speaker is Olga. Hello, Olga. She has a track record
Olga
of
is
15 new
a FinTech
investments
investor at
Speedinvest.
and I don't know if I can
she
spell
did
the name right, but
the companies are
a
Rapid,
couple of
Zego,
investments in
Kuda,
the
and
past
Copper
in Europe and Israel.
And she also were working in Moscow, out of Moscow, and yeah, we're responsible for some ventures. And hello, Olga, nice to see you, and nice to have you here in our meetup. Where are you currently?
Hi everyone. Yeah, sorry for running a bit late. And yeah, to the investments list. So yeah, I've been in Berlin for the last 3 years. Currently, I'm zooming from London. And yeah, to the list of investments and kind of the newest ones, really glad to add and also see on this panel Peter from Unstoppable Finance.
Okay, do you want to tell us more about your investments?
Yeah, sure.
Hopefully.
So yeah, more about the focus of the fund or kind of historical. So what would be what would be best?
I don't know,
used?
just to know you better.
Yeah, look, so I've been doing fintech for the last 5 years. The most recent was Target Global, where I've been for 3.5 years. I was doing as early as pre-seed, as late as Series B of initial investments. It was investing across all kind of subsegments of fintech. So, an example in crypto world. Was investing in Copper, crypto custody, and Mercurio. Gateway in payments, it was Rapid. In banking, it was Kuda, and bunch of other companies like insurance, Zego, and yeah. And recently, 9 months ago, I moved to Speedinvest, where I'm heading pre-seed and seed fintech investments in Europe, where we invest like really being in most of cases like first money in the company, investing like from 300k till like 5 million euro in fintech across Europe, also across different emerging countries, but Europe is a primer focus. And yeah, in Europe we are investors in Bitpanda, which is a unicorn, in WeFox, which is also a unicorn, and a bunch of other companies like again across different subsegments. Luco is in insurance, Primer in payments. The most recent kind of DeFi activity is mentioned, Unstoppable Finance, yeah, and a bunch of others.
Okay, cool. And sorry, can you tell me one of your predictions for this year in the fintech or banking sector?
Yeah, very hard actually to limit to one and even to three, because I mean, due to nature of what I'm doing, I'm looking at really all subsegments of fintech. And I think like it feels like I have sort of predictions to pretty much all of them. But I would say that the most interesting for me personally is definitely this kind of crypto and DeFi becoming more of a like massively adopted things. And it's not only about crypto enthusiasts right now, but it also gets more to the masses and to the institutions. And it leads us to a lot of solutions potentially to pop in, like including different retail tools to invest and get closer to something what used to be very high barrier to enter. It goes down to institutional solutions for crypto, NFTs, DeFi, etc. And it goes down to the whole infrastructure which can actually bridge these two worlds. And ultimately to just the, let's say, compliance layer, which would make banks or institutions to actually also become part of this world. So everything what can bridge like crypto and non-crypto worlds together. So I do believe that we really came to the point of no return in this space, and it will be just growing and growing and generating more of companies on all kind of levels of it, like from retail application to like really infrastructure layers.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we will have time in a second to talk about that deeper. So I can I'm very happy that you posted your cities here, because it seems like we are really the European meetup right now, because I see the people are from Paris, coming from Paris, Cyprus, Hamburg, Spain, Germany, UK, so all over Europe, and Manhattan. So I don't know if it's a blubber or if you really come from Frankfurt, but nice, and hello everybody. And last but not least, yeah. So personally, basically a friend of mine also. So Peter Grosskopf, because we know each other for, I would say, almost 15, 16, 17 years right now. So hello, Peter. Peter is co-founder and CTO at Unstoppable Finance. Before then, he were managing director at Börse Stuttgart. Before then, he worked at Hitfox a couple of years ago. And I met Peter for one of the first time when he started maybe you want to share engineering consultancy and here in this year in Northern Westphalia.
Yeah, so thanks for inviting me. So I'm actually dialing in from a nice wardrobe in Berlin. So what you might have missed, I also co-founded Solaris Bank and built it up as a CTO, and that also kind of was a little bit my trajectory from on the first with an agency that we built, and where I met Jan. I would have said like almost 100 years ago, because it's like internet years. It's like seven real years. So we know forever. So I came to Berlin, joined the company builder. Then FinTech was created as a sub company builder. That was my way into FinTech. We co-founded Solaris Bank. That was my way into banking. And at that time, I also got in contact with cryptocurrencies, and therefore, kind of since that time on, like with the step also at Börse Stuttgart, building up Börse Stuttgart Digital Exchange, I'm kind of caught with the crypto virus, and I think I won't lose it for a long time. Maybe to share a few thoughts, and as this is also a FinTech meetup, so kind of like a thought that came in my mind for the past 2 years, and that I would really like to share with you, because I think for many people, crypto and cryptocurrency trading and so on is just like one thing where also many people in the fintech world really don't get their head around it. So kind of so there's a cryptocurrency like Bitcoin that was invented to transfer money from A to B, but in the end people are buying it as a speculative asset, and that's traded on a crypto exchange. From my point of view, this was kind of the first wave of development, so that first there were cryptocurrencies, they become like a speculative asset, and then the full hype cycle was populated. Also nowadays with crypto custody license, like a KWG license that you can get from BaFin these days in Germany. So kind of, so this way is, and you can trade Bitcoin at brokers like Trade Republic and so on. So this is really going to the mainstream already. But from my point of view, there's really now the second wave coming, and that's called decentralized finance. And the major difference from my point of view is that it's not really about just about like launching a new coin and selling it cheaper than, or buying it or creating it cheaper than you sell it later. It's really about building infrastructure. And therefore, I always say, for me, decentralized finance really FinTech 2.0. Because so when the FinTech started back in the days, and so I really remember, so also when we were working at FinLeap and Solaris Bank, the FinTechs really came to kind of to kill the banks, yeah. So kind of to build up companies that kill the banks. In fact, it's a like collaboration like the collaborative models came out of it, because in the end you need to have a license and you need to have access to the core infrastructure like SEPA, Swift core banking systems and so on and so forth. And what decentralized finance is doing is really building a new core infrastructure. So let's call it core banking system, which is permissionless, open source, free to everyone. Everyone can join. And additionally, with smart contracts, you can build finance applications on top of it. And therefore, from my point of view, really decentralized finance fulfills this FinTech 2.0 thought. And additionally, what I find interesting is so it also leads us kind of a little bit away to regulation as code, if you want to call it like that, because as everything is open source and can be audited, it can't happen that there's like a missing bank account on the Philippines that nobody has access to, where nobody knows if it's there or not. So you can check that within milliseconds. And also, as kind of with smart contracts, everything is automized. We are taking one of the most important variables out of the equation that commits kind of fraud and criminal activity, and that's the human. Yeah, so kind of decentralized finance is pure financial services coded almost 100% and being automized so that like each transaction is happening automatically. And as you can already feel, I'm super bullish on the whole topic, and therefore we started Unstoppable Finance half a year ago, and we want to bring decentralized finance to the masses, because at the moment it's a super technical topic. Getting access, understanding what's going on, and like really developing trust is complicated. We want to make it really easy, and therefore, so it's pretty obvious. It's also one of my predictions for 2022 that just by building applications that are closer to the user and less technical, this whole space will really come closer to the masses. And that's also then additionally driven by the fact that so we have a high inflation due to the Corona help programs. There's negative interest rates. I assume like for a long time the interest rates will be low. You can earn interest rates in decentralized finance land on stable coins very, very easily, like that are like a few percent. I think there's a need for products like that. And there's now the technology, and I think it's about us to really make it work. Yeah, so okay. I could talk longer, but so maybe I stop here.
So you will have the chance in a minute, because like exactly what we will do now is like I'm handing over to Lena, because Lena will moderate the discussion, and there you will have plenty of space, I think, to share your thoughts about the predictions and anything you want to talk about. So thank you for joining the meetup, and I wish you a nice discussion. And Lena, please take over the panel.
Yes, I will. Thanks a lot, Jan, and welcome from my end. I think we are directly, and thanks, Peter, dived into one of the main predictions. I also did in preparation of this meetup, I did a short survey on LinkedIn and asked for like what's the main topic in 2022, and most of the people joining the survey said it's DeFi. So I would just suggest, as we got a wonderful intro from Peter on this topic, and you can tell he's enthusiastic about that, why not picking up this prediction first and going into detail, analyzing, okay, where will we be end of 2022, and where have we been the months and years before, and where is this going beyond like the next 5-10 years. Happy to have you all on the panel, Neha, Olga, Jens, and Peter. Peter, you picked this up so nicely, and I saw Olga saying, yeah, exactly. I mean, you invested in the topic. Would you mind elaborating a bit? When did you start picking up and watching the trend of crypto, but also then decentralized finance? And I know these are two topics.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, these are two topics. I can kind of tell a little bit of personal story and yeah, and kind of which also led a bit to kind of how I personally viewed the space and kind of our perception of it overall. So I have to say I was really late to the party of crypto, really late. I came in like in 2019 only, and actually the previous kind of hype of crypto and the hype of like ICOs topic, I watched from the sidelines and was super skeptical to it. And in 2019, I entered the space actually with the first investment which I was part of back when I was with Target Global. It was Copper, and it is crypto custody for institutional for financial institutions. And ultimately, I kind of at this point in time, the overall perception was like, okay, crypto really went somewhere with kind of retail within retail space already, and we see all the exchanges, etc. But kind of that was a big promise of like financial institutions will get there, and it was a big promise. But ultimately, like the actual time when it really happened was, I would say, really last year. And it really became a point of no return, kind of, at least for crypto, to start kind of with crypto before going into DeFi, right? So, and in crypto, it became like really a point of no return. And we see really spike of a lot of like consumer exchanges. And we are at Speedinvest investors with Bitpanda. We saw massive IPO of Coinbase, right? We started seeing that crypto has become an integrated part of like every other financial offering, in a way. Like people started having crypto in as part of their Revolut product, and like Square made a lot of their revenue on crypto, and it became really already like something which is not gonna go away. And we were really lucky to be in Bitpanda timely enough. We were very lucky to kind of see that trend coming, and currently we kind of got to the point like, okay, if it's point of no return, then there is the time for infrastructure to actually enable many other financial products to embed crypto, or to actually bridge the two worlds in a way like, okay, we have a crypto world which is cut off from traditional banking. How we can bridge this. And that became part of our investment thesis, and we made an investment in one of the companies in this space, bridging this traditional banking and crypto world. And a lot of these bridges between two worlds to be made with the time, and that's part of our investment thesis. And then basically we started looking like, okay, so this is like how crypto wave was developing, and now we see the new almost asset class emerging, with a lot of people talking about DeFi, NFTs, etc. Obviously, I totally agree with what Peter said, and this was also part of our kind of underlying thesis, that DeFi is not only pure, let's say, investment tool or investment class. It's really the whole infrastructure which can ultimately change the financial services. And looking at this as a completely new concept, we again look from two perspectives, like, okay, what infrastructure should be built, and okay, what would be the ultimate, let's say, impact on masses like myself, like every of my friends who for now already pretty active in Trade Republic and pretty active with Bitpanda, and looking like, okay, what should I invest more in next? And that's how we started looking at DeFi as well. And it is obviously in the very much of like infancy. It's like, it's not yet there as like in kind of already very much usual crypto world, but it is emerging, and that's the exciting piece to see how it will be happening further on. So yeah, I'm kind of, it's like really broad picture of like how it was evolving in kind of our minds in the fund, how we are looking at the kind of overall from investment thesis perspective, but it's definitely the topic which is not going to go away. And there are many layers to it, which will generate a lot of products.
You touched upon also the topic of new infrastructure with new technology. And then also how does that interact and how does that co-develop with the old school infrastructure? We got one question from the audience asking, what would be the balance between existing old school payment infrastructure and card schemes like Visa and MasterCard leading it, and the new fancy crypto-based finance, especially considering attempts of the card schemes to jump on this wave?
Yeah,
Peter.
So I was about to suggest Peter talks.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Go ahead,
from my point of view, kind of like the response really depends on the time frame we're talking about, right? Because so from my point of view, there's really, let's say, like today, there's the next 2 years, and there's kind of the time after these next 2 years. And I think especially today and for the next 2 years, there will be hybrid. Yeah, so kind of the fiat world and kind of receiving my salary on a bank account won't go away, because this is simply the standard, and this works and works for everyone. But kind of like the new world, like decentralized finance with its new rails, will come into play, and kind of there will be the players kind of in the middle, kind of the gateways. So also Coinbase and all these guys, but also other startups that are being created right now. And also in the, let's say in this time frame for the next 2 years, the card schemes are also very deeply looking into the whole space. So there have been announcements by MasterCard and Visa also using stable coins for settlement and so on and so forth. So it's kind of they're adopting to that infrastructure. I think that's also quite interesting, because I think they're key. Well, I'm not a super payments expert, but there are probably some people in the audience who are super payment experts. But from my point of view, they're kind of like the integration of the card schemes in kind of at the point of sale and so on and so forth is their biggest strength, because kind of to kind of like pay with like new payment infrastructure at a petrol station really depends on this last mile. And so once they start adopting crypto technology also for settlement, that's a step in the right direction, probably also saving them like an existence in the future. Potentially, I really believe, and now talking about the time after the next 2 years, that so there's really core elements, and also kind of once these crypto gateways start to erode, because if I'm able to pay with a Visa or MasterCard directly and settling it kind of like a debit card that's working on my non-custodial wallet, and that's like technically possible, and I'm pretty sure that stuff like that will happen, then kind of these gateways kind of get bypassed, and like step after step, a completely new ecosystem is being created. And then we will see kind of like the cheapest, fastest, most usable technology will win. And I'm pretty sure, especially when blockchain hits the scale, and also the right blockchains are used, so that also can guarantee low fees and so on and so forth. I think then there's I don't see many reasons why this shouldn't be adopted if it's really better. And one of my favorite example, maybe to add this as like the last point. So my favorite example is that kind of with like the invention of the euro, like more than 20 years ago, it was already discussed to have real-time payments. Finally, it found like an implementation, which is still not the standard. Yeah, so kind of, and also some banks really get like extra fees when I'm doing a real-time transaction. And I think everyone who's using Facebook and Twitter kind of has push notifications for the past 8 years, kind of like the whole world is real-time and has kind of like direct transactions. But somehow the banking world, it's not standard. And I think it's kind of these tiny elements that somehow make me think like, okay, the decentralized finance space, and probably I will later say something about the Web3, which is kind of already the next step, which comes after that, really is moving with such a high speed, and is from my point of view able to deliver better solutions and products, and therefore I'm pretty sure that this kind of like the adoption can happen pretty fast.
You mentioned several points. One I would like to pick up, and then I continue also and pick up Alexander's question from the audience. You mentioned the low fee that comes along with implementing such new technologies. And Neha, I remember when we prepared for the panel, you mentioned, and in your introduction as well, you mentioned that financial inclusion is one topic. I don't want to go too much into detail, but what effect does this new technology have on financial inclusion? And what's your perspective on those developments from an Asia standpoint?
Yeah, thanks, Lena. And I'm glad we're talking about crypto waves and fintech waves, not COVID waves. So that's a big change because we are talking about big waves, and hopefully I can see myself at a beach as well. But yeah, coming to your question, I think we spoke a lot about NFTs, or actually there's a question in the chat about cryptos. So I think I would like to change the focus and bring it to CBDC, the central bank digital currency, because I believe when we talk about the big powerhouses of fintech in the Asian context, we cannot forget about China. And China has been going full throttle in the CBDC space purely because they're coming from a place where they want to be holding on to the data. They want to be the honeypot of data, because right now, if you talk about the landscape in China, Alipay and WeChat take about the 90% of payment landscape. So all the data, which is the new oil of our current world, goes to these private players. And of course, Chinese regulators are not too happy with this. And to shake up things and take charge in their own hands, they have come up with CBDC. And this is going really well. So without going too much into how it's going to shape with how it's shaping up in the Chinese market, I can tell you that during the Chinese New Year, when they give away the red packet, now they're giving away through the app, which is the ECNY. It's a digital yuan that they're giving away to people, and it can be used in McDonald's, Starbucks. So that's how the landscape is. So imagine if you're talking about 1.7 billion people who are unbanked, and 31% of them are adults around the world. That's a big proportion. And when we talk about Asia, we have to keep in mind that there are about 290 million people in Asia who are still unbanked, and they come from countries like Vietnam, Philippines, Indonesia. And all of them put together is equal to the population of Indonesia, which is the 4th largest country in the world population-wise. So it's a big chunk, and a lot of private players don't want to look there. But when you talk about SDGs 1 and 5, where you're looking at empowering women, gender equality, and building economies which are based on leaving no one behind, I think we are also looking at solutions like eKYC, where it's possible to know your customer, and especially when someone doesn't have an ID to begin with, how we can have a digital ID. And India has done a great job in terms of having a digital ID called Aadhaar. I come from India, but having lived in Singapore for such a long time, I take pride in saying that India has managed to come up with an ID system which is enabled with biometrics, iris, and it's linked to the private parties, just the way we talk about open banking coming from PSD2, or in the UK from FCA. I think India, without even realizing they're working towards open banking APIs, they build up this infrastructure. And now all the private players are sitting on that infrastructure and enabling financial inclusion. And then, the fact that we have open banking APIs, and we are able to also plug in the green fintech aspect of it, how we can be sustainable. Because if you talk about the European context, they're about, if you talk about the average individual in Europe, their carbon footprint is about 15 tons in a year. And because the EU has a commitment to bring down the carbon footprint, and they're trying to be carbon neutral by 2050, it has to come down from 15 tons to 3.5 tons. That's a big goal. And I think fintech is playing a role there as well. So when we're talking about inclusive finance, we're talking about green tech, I think there's a huge scope. Not only through open APIs, but also through digital currencies. And hopefully we will see a lot happening in that space. I really enjoyed what Peter and Olga have been sharing about the crypto space. And we have seen what has happened in the last 1 year. The Gen Zs and millennials are coming forward. So I think it's also about financial and digital literacy, because we're trying to bridge the digital, gender, and financial gap here. So a lot has to be done in the space.
Maybe before entering another field of predictions, and I think it's wonderful to see how the predictions to some extent also interlink and push each other, trigger each other, how you evolved now from my rather DeFi perspective onto financial inclusion and then the sustainability topic. That's wonderful to see how interlinked this is. Before jumping into and picking up other predictions, let's take some questions from the audience again, which, for example, are, what are your predictions about DeFi loans or NTF as collaterals? I have to admit, I'm not into that topic, so I can't pick this up, but my job is to moderate it. And I have 4 wonderful people here who can highlight that. Who wants to pick up the DeFi loans question here?
Yeah, well, so it's about NFTs kind of as a collateral, kind of these
NFT, yeah.
like non-fungible token, kind of, for example, mostly known from digital art, kind of like being sold, where NFTs can be used as kind of the proof of ownership of a respective art document, so taking it as a collateral, I think it's an interesting idea, but so personally, I have a few doubts because I think the NFT market is very bloated, and so I really believe that there's something behind it, and I compared it kind of like with epochs. So the cryptocurrency, CryptoKitties and the punks kind of opened the whole space. So why do they have a value? Because they were the first kind of like enabling this new category of digital art, and kind of, so they're very popular and therefore they have a value. And then kind of there have been a few stages like epochs, like also in classical art, whatever, generative art, and kind of new kind of NFT token types, like with royalty function and so on and so forth. And I think like each category leader of this epoch, kind of the NFTs will have a value, and as long as they have a value and other people are willing to pay something for it, I think it also makes sense as a collateral to use it somewhere. I think in the future there will be much more also, like, let's say, real artists kind of from the classical art scene that will jump on the NFT space, and I think they already built themselves a name, and therefore their digital art will also have some sort of value, because if Banksy does an NFT, I think people will be willing to pay money for it. So with those kind of NFTs, I could imagine that that there can be something constructed out of it. But I think for this like really long tail, kind of like colorful images with kind of any sorts of apes and whales and so on, I don't know if this is the best idea. So I think there's approaches to take digital assets as collateral, for example, real estate. There's banks experimenting with that. I think that's fascinating, because like real estate has obviously a value. It's also in a bubble, but I think it's like a way more sustainable bubble than the NFT bubble. And I think kind of like taking other assets than cryptocurrencies as collateral will come, and that will be explored. And yeah, so it's definitely interesting, but I think NFTs, there's some caution with it.
Yeah. Maybe we leave it as that. Definitely the most hyped prediction around DeFi, etc. And I will probably get back to this at the end of the panel discussion, Peter, giving you the option then to finalize this prediction with adding your thoughts on Web3. But for now, I would like to jump into another prediction that you guys shared with me up front, which was, and I'm sorry, I know this is very bullshitty now. This was buy now, pay later, and a prediction that came from Jens, but also from Olga. Jens, how do you perceive the trend of buy now, pay later? I myself, just an anecdote, I used to work like back then for Neckermann in e-commerce, and like Ratenzahlung, buy now, pay later was the thing back then already. But it has some kind of re-hype here. How do you look at that prediction and at that trend? Jens?
Yeah, I mean, Lena, to be honest, I mean, we from a German perspective look a bit strange on this topic, because we know it already for like decades, and it's nothing new there, and we are a bit wondering what's going on in this space, in this sector around the globe. However, I mean, we see how hype there. We see it like in every places, and with the experience from the German market on this kind of field, given also the environment of interest rates currently, also with the possibilities to like get a kind of loan in this kind of sector. I would say this is also my expectation for this year, that we still see some growth in this sector. However, what is not seen yet is the downside of it all totally, especially if you see it from a consumer's perspective. We don't see yet that there is it's a huge risk for consumer in running into that track, that we see realistic interest rates more than what we see on the normal market here, that we see consumers trapping into this kind of holes. And this is not yet into the market, and I would expect this will turn out to becoming relevant in this year, I would say.
Olga, you've done buy now, pay later investments, and why did you choose to do so?
So, I mean, I kind of, to be very frank, I'm not surprised to the hype of buy now, pay later, right? I think it's just kind of became more, in a way, widespread and common, and kind of really a typical part of like user behavior. We haven't done any B2C buy now, pay later investments, but one of our portfolio companies is doing B2B buy now, pay later, which in my view is much more interesting. And kind of my sort of prediction rather lies overall on kind of B2B space, because ultimately, like all consumers, all of us sort of already met the wave of like innovations. We all sort of got used to everything in the phone and digital bank and everything like very smooth and nice. But if you go to like, if same people like us are becoming a business owner, freelancers, etc., everything is very different for them. And like the innovations which happen for SMEs are really like, they haven't happened even yet. And speaking about buy now, pay later, like this space for B2B, I believe is much, much bigger. And we are investors in a company called Billy, who has an exclusive partnership with Klarna to provide B2B buy now, pay later for SMEs, effectively for merchants, for companies. And this is a super interesting space in my view, but echoing what Jens have been saying. So I believe that, yeah, there is a really downside to it, which kind of everyone is yet to see. Because first of all, I mean, I don't want to be dramatic that we will meet economic crisis or whatsoever, but this is just a very natural way of kind of how economical cycle works, right? And we will see a lot of bad debt, and kind of now it's all growing on the hype, but like this adoption goes at a cost of defaults. I mean, also you can kind of, if you are a buy now, pay later provider, you can just treat it as a customer acquisition cost in a way. But still, like it will go at cost of bad debts. It will also go at cost of like heavier regulatory landscape, which is kind of in many countries is not yet really, is nearly non-existent. So yeah, I think it will be just kind of the user behavior is shaping in a way that it's like really a very common part of the behavior and kind of the way we spend, the way we buy. But it will go at cost of like also heavier regulation regime for all the companies providing it.
Okay. Neha,
Yeah.
can you give us a more or even more international perspective on the topic?
Yeah, I was actually hoping if you could just take a step back to understand why we got into BNPL. I think this is mostly because when we talk about using a credit card and the revolving rate of interest, that's a big hit. And we have seen during the pandemic, during any crisis, we tend to go for alternative, which is, it seems like a better option for us. Like in the last 2 years, we have seen people going for digital gold. And I see Peter is very excited to hear Bitcoin there. So I think people are fascinated towards digital currencies and alternative virtual currency. And that also goes to show that there are research that shows that people are increasingly giving up on using credit card. They're going towards debit card. And I think that brings us to BNPL, because now we know that we don't want to pay such a high interest rate, which is revolving. we want to go for an easier option. And also, I think we're talking about instant gratification because we get what we want right now at a cheaper option compared to credit card. But having said that, I think from a perspective of SME, like Olga spoke about, we're talking about a segment which is totally unattended or ignored most of the times. And by that perspective, I think when Klarna, Affirm, Afterpay, these players, they're looking into capturing a market where they can do underwriting of loans because they get so much of data of these SME players, merchants, retailers. They can use AI and machine learning tools and quickly decide the creditworthiness of these companies and give loans very fast and also get the repayment very quickly. So I think that mechanism where, because they're already plugged into the system, they can easily disperse the loan, decide what needs to be done in terms of their credit terms. I think that's the beauty of BNPL, and the B2B part is very fascinating because like Jens spoke about how could it be bad for the consumers eventually. We don't understand because, you know, retail therapy is the cool thing all the time. When we're upset, we want to buy something and that eases our pain, takes away our Monday blues. But this is not what BNPL is for. I think if we look at from a regulator's perspective, they're also encouraging people not to go on that path aggressively, like they always talk about cryptos as well, because there's a downside. And I think from a regulatory perspective also, because when I wear my lawyer's hat, I feel that a lot of countries like Singapore, Australia, the UK, they have come up with regulation in terms of how it's going to work. But for the SME standpoint, I think there's a great potential. And if we can tap into it, we are giving the blood life, which is the finance, the capital that these companies need, especially during what has happened the last 2 years during the pandemic.
I would totally agree. Any other thoughts? I recognize that the trend of BNPL, at least to me, it seems it comes more from a consumer behavior change, while the DeFi trend that we discussed about first rather comes from new technology sides. Do you see further interlink between those two trends, Peter?
Well, maybe so just like brainstorming forward. So from my point of view, and so I was thinking about that some time ago already, because so I thought like wallets could or not custodial wallet and having crypto assets in there could be or could enable us in the future to have some sort of dynamic credit line, which is kind of which can become quite substantial in my point of view, because if I'm able kind of to display all my assets and potentially I could tokenize my house, I could tokenize like contracts, like savings contracts that I have, like stable coins and currencies, but also like other crypto assets, NFTs. And I think as so potentially I could be able in the future to connect also my wallet with like a buy now pay later service, and in the end kind of to manage the risk, just like by seeing, okay, how much collateral is there, how much kind of substance is behind that person, kind of decentralized finance could maybe enable the one or the other company to take better decisions. Still, I think the big difficulty for the space will still be that kind of giving loans to people who have assets on their bank account is very easy, because and that's also kind of happening when many, so I know many people who did like a 100% financing for real estate and so on and so forth. So that's kind of becoming the normal these days, which I think is super crazy. But I think many people who don't have not so much money or not such a high salary, for them it's way more interesting to use these services, kind of like to spread kind of a purchase over a few months to be able to buy a new TV or computer or so. And I think for these people, it's definitely it could be maybe a support when they can display their belongings a little bit more transparent and easy to banks to get a loan. And yeah, so but I think if that's not the case, I think technology around really optimizing the defaults and or the default rate and really taking better decisions, or maybe helping the people to pay it back. So I have, for example, like Pair Finance in mind, kind of doing some sort of that. I think it's also an interesting niche, because if the one trend picks up, then kind of like new problems arise, and maybe there's an opportunity then also to tackle that niche.
Actually, I'm personally smiling in parallel to everything what Peter was
first,
saying.
and then on top is to me. Salad on top, and then.
Sorry, I think someone from the audience is not on mute here. Could you please
Yeah.
go on mute, or Matthias jump in and mute him, her, and then Olga, please go on.
Yeah, so I think we are, I mean, it's not a prediction. It's not, I wouldn't say it's a massive trend, but it's also a bit of an interest in just observation that we are really, we all live in pretty interesting time, and we see that there is actually pretty big cohort of people who accumulated their wealth in, let's say, crypto space. And actually, like on books of the banks, their wealth is not looking that good when they come and apply for mortgage or that sort of loan. And they are at the same time kind of pretty active users of buy now, pay later, of credit cards, of all of these things, not because they don't have any money. They actually are much richer than many people, but just all their wealth accumulated in completely different, let's say, universe in a way. And that's an interesting kind of, in a way, concept, which I think we just didn't have a chance to observe in the past, when kind of there was just one universe where wealth sort of existed. And now there are sort of two. And if there is, again, kind of going back to what Peter said, and kind of going back to kind of partially our investment thesis, like if there is a bridge to merge these two universes, then it becomes even more exciting in a way, like there is more data, more products, and just, yeah, more connectivity in a way.
Yeah,
but thinking about, sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, but I just wanted to maybe circle back a bit to kind of buy now, pay later. I'm personally kind of, I think that it's like, as a standalone product, it's, I mean, it's getting more and more kind of, there are more and more companies emerging, right? But at the same time, we've been using this for ages with existing companies. But at the same time, I think that the interesting piece is that buy now, pay later per se for consumers is just a very powerful customer acquisition tool for any other service, for neobanks, and we see them launching this service for for maybe kind of some other companies. It's a nice customer acquisition tool, and then the question is like, what is the bigger play after that? And an example, if you look at again Klarna, it is becoming kind of, I mean, I don't like to throw the kind of loud words of like super apps, etc., but it is interesting because ultimately, with what is happening kind of, let's say, on the display of Klarna app, you can see that technically the, let's say, marketing costs which brand would pay to Google ads could be actually eaten, this marketing revenue could be actually eaten, but by a likes of kind of Klarna or other buy now pay later products who have them all on this display, which is an interesting kind of trend and way of thinking. Again, kind of it's not like we have too many data points in terms of these, let's say, budgets and customer acquisition costs, but this is something what I foresee pretty easily.
I think the topic of super app also was dropped by Neha in the preparation. So Neha, would you like to pick this up and think this a bit further?
Yeah, thank you. So I think the super apps in the Asian context, or even when we talk about globally, the audience will be surprised to learn that all the big super apps, there are about 7, all of them hail from Asia. And of course, Olga spoke about Klarna and those who are in the making, but I think there's still a long way, because the kind of ease that Asians have, including myself, when it's about sharing our data in return of some personalization or discount or loyalty that we get through an app, is almost not there in the EU region, because a lot of people in the European region are very concerned about data privacy, and GDPR is also hanging on their neck. But when we talk about the Asian context, our data gets compromised every now and then, and we are very cool about it. We like to share everything on our Facebook, and perhaps that's also a way to get alternative credit scoring as well. But at the same time, the very fact that all the super apps are in this part of the world, like to give an example, GoTo, which was earlier called Gojek, it comes from Indonesia. Of course, it operates around Southeast Asia. It started as a hailing firm, and now they're into everything you can imagine. You can date people through that app. You can book a cab. You can make payments. You can buy air ticket. You can book hotels, whatnot. They have 2% GDP contribution to the Indonesian economy. That's the kind of power the super apps hold. Grab, it comes from Southeast Asia, again, a car hiding firm that started from Malaysia. Two founders who studied at Harvard Business School. They were worried about how women can be safe when they get back home in Malaysia. So moving from Malaysia, they came to Singapore, make Singapore as their head office, had the biggest listing on NASDAQ recently by any Southeast Asian company ever. So you can imagine the kind of funding these companies get. For all you know, they are still making losses. They have a long way to make revenue. But from a perspective of financial inclusion and the super apps nexus, I think that's a good one, because the last 2 years during the COVID pandemic, I've been living in India. And I took up a project of writing a book on super apps, because most of my work is about creating impact. So I wanted to explore this angle more. And I spoke to the founders of Paytm, which is the biggest super app from India. It's also a unicorn. They were recently listed as well at Bombay Stock Exchange. And turns out that there's a huge potential of reaching to the last mile, because they can customize their language. India is a huge country. We speak different languages as we move from one city to the other. And the user interface is so easy. And every time you go to a pop and mom store, they don't want cash anymore because people are scared of touching cash. So you can use Paytm, which actually means use Paytm. Paytm is a Hindi word, basically, which means you can take out your phone and use Paytm, or it's about using Grab. I think we forgot to mention about wealth tech as well, the new trend. And since we're talking about super apps, I get very passionate because, I've been doing research, writing about this for the last 2 years. But again, coming back to the Grab example, Grab lets you invest with $1. So that is the power of robo-advisory. Imagine if I'm a maid working in Singapore, I come from India, I'm staying with my employer 24/7. I just get around $300 Sing as the money at the end of the month. And there's no avenue for me to have a relationship manager or have a bank account, right? No relationship manager will take a maid as a client. But if I were to download Grab, and every time I'm taking a cab ride, I'm ordering food, I'm doing anything from their platform, I can just park $1 away and start making investments in mutual funds, in cryptos and whatnot. So this is the power of super apps. And like Olga said, it also allows you a bunch of new customers at zero cost. So I was staying with my mom right throughout the COVID period, and I was wondering from where can I get my supplies, my fruit, my veggies. And I went to that super app. I opened the section which lets you use the Bluetooth feature, the GPS, to find out small retailers. Like in Delhi, you have those small retailers that's like a flea market, and they were having a tough time. I could call them, I could chat with them, I could pay the money to them, and they deliver free of cost to my home. So imagine the kind of opening up of customer acquisition and reaching out to so many people. So I think that's the beauty of the super app. And we talk about software eating hospitality, software eating finance with Airbnb, and software eating finance with super apps. So I think that's the future to go.
That's a cool metaphor. I think talking about super apps and having all the examples Olga and you shared, we see that it's not all about in the financial use case. It's also embedding different use cases or embedding finance into other use cases. And Jens, I remember preparing the panel, you also mentioned embedded finance a lot here. So where do you see the chances interlinked with the super apps use cases on embedded finance?
I mean, from my point of view, and I like what you said, Olga, before, that we see a lot of development in this kind of how can we embed finance in many other areas. We've seen that already in the B2C space and in the recent years. We see that currently, especially also from my role, what we are interacting with our merchant customers and their beliefs, and also their customers, what they're trying to give them or try to provide to the merchant side, is that there's a lot of demand on the B2B side in this kind of area, and this is something what the service providers, but also the super app providers can really leverage and bring together on this topic. So if we put it together on the super app side, I mean, the B2C side is pretty much linked from my perspective, but there's a lot of room for be it financial services for the B2B world or for other payments, closely payment topics into the B2B space, which we are not seeing yet, and what I would see in a couple of months to come.
Yeah, I actually, I was listening to. I totally agree with what has been said just now, but also I think it's fascinating to just highlight what Neha said, because I think that kind of all of us just started talking about super apps after Asia, and Asia is a really unique example of like how powerful it can be, and we can also debate if it's at all possible in Europe and all other countries. Kind of Asia had different kind of all countries there had different kind of let's say starting point when there was a whole leapfrog of like through banking system straight to the wallets and like all the alternative payment methods, which also like made some impact on kind of how it happened. But also like interesting to see that like all these ecosystems with kind of with financial services more came already to the other apps where there were a lot of people in the platform already, like messengers. Like in case of Grab, it was like overall like all the lifestyle services, delivery, etc. And all the kind of financial pieces of let's invest with $1, it went on top of the platform, which was already absolutely massive. And I think that kind of embedded finance topic in Europe and in developed world started also happening from perspective of like, okay, so if we are Deliveroo, Uber, or whoever of kind of these platforms already on one hand having a lot of consumers using that, on the other hand like having a lot of drivers employed in a way or working for it, like basically the second side, let's embed like different financial services for them. And this is like it is a fascinating concept, and it's interesting kind of how far away it will go with like different financial applications embedded there, and which on the other hand also opens up like the other part, like, okay, so now we have all the delivery like gig economy workers who were in a way partially cut out of like financial services before, because just no bank has any data on people who have like who work as gig driver. And now we have basically the whole group of people who would get new kind of financial services either in this app or in financial banks, who would sort of get the data to what they actually do while being employed in completely different kind of ecosystem. So yeah, it's interesting how this trend is going in parallel and kind of trying to, let's say, replicate, but with a tweak of like local specifics, how it is developing in Europe versus Asia. But Asia is obviously is a kind of main inspiration of everyone who's kind of speaking about super apps here in Europe.
Yeah, maybe using the silence also to pick up on the super apps topic, because And well, Lena, you already said, so I can also talk about Web3 a little bit in the end. So I think this is the perfect time to do that, because from my point of view, that's probably not a 2022 topic, but beyond it, from my point of view, there's like a really a new class of super apps coming up, and in the end, from my point of view, it will also be built on top of the crypto ecosystem and non-custodial wallets. So why that? So I think also when reading or screening a few from the comments here in the chat, I think, and I try to cover this with my intro, kind of like cryptocurrencies as a means of speculation. Kind of, it was not their core use case in the beginning, but kind of an infrastructure suddenly got used as an asset. But now with decentralized finance coming back as an infrastructure to be used, kind of like for building services. And kind of the core idea in the end behind especially permissionless blockchains, so open blockchains where where everyone can connect and build on top of it, and the idea of asymmetric cryptography, so kind of having a private key that proves me as the owner of something. On these ideas and on all these open standards, I think you will be able to build the super apps of tomorrow, because in the end, nowadays you're able to kind of own all your financial belongings and being able to transact with it. So that's what decentralized finance is doing. But there's also already many projects, for example, working on an implementation of decentralized identifiers and credentials, which means that I'm able to own kind of my persona in the web. Kind of my Facebook username, my Google username might be a concept of yesterday in the future, because kind of the username and probably all the data attached to it will be governed through myself, with my private key that lives together with my non-custodial wallet. And going even further, so like moving from a persona to a digital identity. So there's like projects, like many countries are much further ahead than Germany, but even in Germany, there's like the sovereign identity project. In the EU, there's also like harmonized efforts on that. So kind of there could be governmental created identities also living in such a wallet. But also kind of bank-created digital identities. So an e-money institution can kind of identify a person and store this information with an NFT or some digital credential, and that can live with my wallet. And from my point of view, kind of really expanding. I'm owning a house. Okay, so I'm the owner, so I have the key for it. I could combine it with the lock at my door, or I can do this with my car. I can also then lend out my car to somebody else because I'm the owner of it. And so there will be so many use cases like in the world that just simply are basing on top this idea of there's an owner of something and you're selling it, or you're moving it over, or you spend it with someone. And in the end, so why am I so bullish, and why is it better than today's world? Again, so it's open standards, and it's not like walled garden where some people are excluded and where Facebook is owning the access, and nobody can kind of like get them from their throne. I think it's the opposite, because the technology might really enable us, the society, the community, to really get them out of their throne and kind of having people owning their data and their credentials and deciding who to give the data and where to do transactions. And I think kind of the technology is there. The first use cases arise. There's many projects around that. And therefore, I think that also now finance topics or finance services and banking services and then stuff beyond will really converge in one app and one technical platform that's open for many use cases. And I think that can be also a huge driver for innovation in the future.
I think it's interesting as a moderator of the panel, how I always try to like, okay, let's talk about BNPL, let's talk about embedded finance, let's talk about super app, but then it all like cycles back to DeFi and the new technology emerging around this. And there again comes another question from the audience. It seems to be the prediction and the trend by far. The question is, what do you think will happen in terms of CDFI, centralized, decentralized finance? Who came up with that term in 2022? Have you heard of that term CDFI, and can you share your thoughts where this is heading us?
Well, so from my point of view, I think it's really part of also my my answer that I gave, like on this like two years time frame. So I think so as the whole cryptocurrency trading space, let's really call it like that, got heavily regulated also by introduction of licenses and kind of like putting it under the roof of KWG, for example, in Germany, and that you need to have like a broker license and so on if you want to offer a platform and so on. I think this, and also like AML5 restrictions and so on. So this is like all done, so there's the whole industry that was built on top of that, because regulation in that manner also gives safety for investing into a business. And I think especially in Germany, there's a huge industry already developed on top of that, and kind of having users that don't own the funds themselves. Yeah, so they give it to a custodian, and this custodian is taking care for it. So that's what centralized finance like Coinbase, like Börse Stuttgart Digital Exchange, Bison, and so on are doing, and to offer to their customers DeFi solutions like earning interest. I think that's a natural thing that will come, but still these companies will always then fight also with kind of their restrictions that they have in their like in their business. So from my point of view, they will always move less fast than the community that's coming up with new ideas, new services. And therefore I think it's so if you want to use DeFi, from my point of view, you should go the full circle and kind of really learn about it and feel the usage, because I think we're still in the beginning.
Yeah, that's interesting. Maybe like trying to summarize what we said, and maybe leave also a final mark here, a bit provocative. I know you shared your predictions and we discussed it now, but if you would have to put that in one sentence, or I don't know, 1, 2, 3 words, can I try to push you to do so? Because I know like in the end, we talked a lot about DeFi, but also other aspects, green FinTech, inclusive finance, super apps, embedded finance. What would be the one sentence or the one word, I don't know, you would like to have the audience remember going through 2022? I'll give you a bit of seconds to think about this. And I'm happy also to invite the audience again to share questions. And then I'll also, after that question, will hand over to the audience and include you in the discussion.
Okay, so maybe I can go first, Lena.
Go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, so I think poor people don't need poor solutions. We need banking, we don't need banks. So there's a lot of promise, as we can see in this panel discussion itself, that the future is free for anyone to have. So it's all about, innovation, democratization, and the revolution that we see right now. So if you want to be an entrepreneur, this is the best time. If you want to be an investor, if you want to dabble into crypto, this is the best time. So there's no stopping you, because there's so many events like this where you can gain so much knowledge. I have learned so much today, so thank you for having me. And now I think it's time for Olga, because she's ready with her prediction.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, so that's actually totally resonates with what you just said, Neha. But I mean, if I will be kind of down to what I'm started with, I do believe that it is the year about bridging crypto and traditional finance world. I do believe that it's kind of already at the point of when it gets, so there is definitely no return. And it is something where we will see more money coming, big money coming in the space from investors, and also like literally adoption of all these like traditional banks, going deeper in the space, and also when it goes further to the masses. So yeah, if I kind of highlight one, and literally in 3 words, it would be bridging of crypto and traditional finance.
Thanks, great. Jens, what did you come up with?
Yeah, I was looking for another word now, but because I was also on the interlink between the different ecosystems, what we currently see. I mean, historically, and this is what we discussed, we have finance in the banking sphere. We discussed a lot about DeFi and crypto, which is another ecosystem, but we also talked about players like retailers, like other areas, the super app players, which have an own community and own ecosystem of consumers and touch points, which come into the finance game. And I would expect the year of interlinking all these ecosystems in it together. And this is also super interesting for us as a payment player for merchants, being at this spotlight of bridging the solution technically at a point of sale with connecting to the classic world, to the new world, and also to uprunning challenges which are there in the market. So it's a super interesting time for us as well.
As you are pointing out, also on the traditional financial services, would you mind having a look at the question in the chat, saying any predictions about more traditional financial services, so not Web3 related? And I'll get to Peter and his final sentences here, and then I'll get back to you, Jens, picking up this one question. Okay, Peter, here you go.
All right. Yeah, so from my point of view, so now having talked a lot about crypto, DeFi, Web3, and so on and so forth, so what does it tell us? From my point of view, this whole fact that this kind of development has happened like with crypto and that it finds adoption, I think the effect will be that it will bring much more color to the fintech space, maybe more than ever before, because so I was talking about kind of fintech 7 years ago, so it was in many situations fancy front ends on old technology, and I think the effect with crypto now being like part of the game, I think it will put more pressure on every player. Yeah, and you see this with the reactions of MasterCard, of Visa. PayPal announced the stablecoin project the week before. So I think it's now probably innovation will become more fast. Probably that will be also a stretch for banks within 2022 and beyond, because once the innovation really starts to accelerate, and kind of the tech companies so that I named before are probably able to catch up more quickly, but maybe not the banks. So I think it's really now about to orientate, to see what's going on there, to learn about it, and also tap their toes in there, because so probably the race won't become slower, it will become faster. And I think this variety of solutions, DeFi brings interest rates back. So there's new concepts like in giving loans and so on. So I think so this will have an effect on the traditional finance industry as well, and I think that will be something really worth to have a look at this year.
Thanks a lot. Thanks. So what you mentioned, I'm just trying to highlight, because you mentioned so many valuable points, Peter. And what you mentioned is that back then FinTech was a fancy front end on old technology, and what you're now pushing tonight, especially in this discussion, is that this old technology might be overdue.
Well, so probably that quote can also be seen controversial, but I think so. I think about Jens is also laughing. So I think so. This has been is already like a public one. But yeah, so I think this is really it. So I think as now infrastructure is also touched on this innovation cycle, and it's working different. Yes. That also means that like everyone, like every stakeholder, and for me also regulators, states, the ECB, and so on, they are all stakeholders of the financial ecosystem, and I think they all need to learn. And of course, with a new technology, there's also always opportunities, there's risks, there's probably also things that need to be fixed. Yeah, so we came a little bit short during that meetup on those. We talked about like everything good. I'm also happy to say more things about like the bad things, or where we maybe need to have a look in. But I would have solutions, I can already say. But yeah, so I think it's not a starting point for a discussion.
Thanks. Jens, there are now even more questions, but let's get back to the question on the traditional financial services and predictions regarding those. What would you say?
Yeah, I was pretty much reflecting on what the credit card schemes and the existing players in the market are doing. I mean, Peter, you referred to the existing infrastructure, and I would like to highlight this as well, because I mean, it's easy to talk about new stuff and new technology which comes up. But if we think of global networks, the most important, most relevant, and most strong networks are the credit card companies in the world, and they play out this game even more. And this is what I see in as trend from this. Let's say it's a traditional area that they play out this existing infrastructure, this network capabilities towards the customers, but also towards the merchant side of things. And we see it on the fee side. We see it on how products are launched into the market, how they jump into the relation of the consumer with the merchant or this kind of relation. So there's a lot of development still, and a lot of strengths in this market, and the networks are part of the game and still, and they play it out.
Okay, picking up the other question, and you also touched upon the point, Jens, with the fees. Olga, I think this question I would like you to answer, because you as an investor probably look a lot at business models and especially business cases, and now seeing all the neobanks having business models without fees. Do you think they start to introduce fees gradually this year, or like how do you look at this business models without fees?
I mean, it's a fantastic question. It's a fantastic question because I mean, ultimately, if you look at it depends on the product itself, right? An entry product. If you look at neobanks, well, I think that ultimately there are two ways for neobanks to make money. One of them is lending and credit products, and but this model is more applicable for emerging markets because of like higher interest spread, and we see like absolutely fascinating new bank numbers when they got public this year. And the other way is look at Revolut and very big percentage of revenue coming from crypto. So it's sort of there are kind of free services which are heavily subsidized by some others like crypto. And speaking about like same kind of trading and kind of trading as part of like Revolut proposition, it is also like there are in a way embedded fees there in the pricing which we embedded in the pricing. In a way you do not see it because no one will go back and check what is an actual price of this particular stock, but there is some fee already. So ultimately I think that kind of some services are used just a pure, let's say, lead generation as kind of let's take buy now pay later, but the rest of money is made on some other services which are high margin.
Yeah, I think it's worth to mention that the EU banned kind of the payment for order flow business model end of last year. So this will definitely also have an effect on the neo brokers. So like Olga said, so they in the end kind of take their fees from the spread. So when like from the bid-ask spread when executing the orders, and so therefore you're not paying no fees, you're paying fees, but you pay other fees. But yeah, so as kind of the neo broker is earning money with kickbacks kind of from the marketplaces, so that way of doing things, and like Robinhood was like the first example for that, is now banned by the EU, and yeah, so curious to see how the neo brokers will react on that.
Many thanks. I think we got to close here. Many thanks, Peter. Many thanks, Jens. Thanks so much, Olga, dialing in from London, and thanks so much, Neha, for joining us. This is late hours for you, Neha, so a special thank you here.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. If the audience has further questions, I think I guess the panelists are open to be connected via LinkedIn and answer your questions afterwards. Thanks a lot. I'll hand over to Jan to close up the meetup.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you, Lena, for asking the right questions. So many impressions and so many predictions. So I'm also looking forward for next year. Yeah, so closing the meetup. So thank you for joining the meetup, of course, and we're really asking you to share the meetup. So we also will upload the video of the panel discussion and the pitches before on our channels. So like, please share it on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. And also, if you have any speaker recommendations, because as I told you in the beginning, we want to be more diverse, more inclusive, more Europe. So like, if you have any speaker recommendations for the next meetups, please get in touch with us. So you'll find us on Twitter, or you have the email of Lena, and also like my email and Matthias' email. And also as a thank you for joining the meetup, especially for the panelists, for your companies. So as I mentioned, Matthias and me are hosting the FinTech weekly newsletter, which has almost like 20,000 subscribers worldwide. So if you have any news to share, please send it to us. We can post it in our weekly newsletter and also in our magazine. So please get in touch. The email address is in the chat. And also our next meetup is happening in March 17. So please save the date. Matthias also posted a link to our Eventbrite event, I think. So please save the date now and get your ticket for March. And we will announce the speakers, hopefully very, very soonish. So yeah, and yeah, so thanks to everyone for joining, and have a nice evening, and also like a nice weekend, because